says, on the 8th day you shall bring 2 male lambs and 1 female lamb, a year old, that are without any defects. 5 pounds of flour mixed with olive oil and a half tin of olive oil. The priest shall take you in these offerings to the entrance of the tent of the Lord's presence. Then the priest shall take one of the male lambs, and together with the half pint of oil he shall offer it as a repayment offering. He shall present them as a special gift to the Lord for the priest. He shall kill the lamb. He shall kill the lamb in the holy place where the animals for the sin offering and the burnt offerings are killed. You must do this because the repayment offering, like the sin offering, belongs to the priest. That is very holy. The priest shall take some of the blood of the lamb and put it on the lobe of the right ear and the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot of the one of you to be declared which shall be clean. The priest shall take some of the olive oil and pour it in the palm of his hand, his left hand, and dip a finger of his right hand in it, and sprinkle some of it 7 times there in the Lord's presence. He should take some of the oil that is in the palm of his hand and some of the blood of the lamb, and put them on the lobe of the right ear and the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot of the one of you to be declared ritually clean. You shall put the rest of the olive oil that is in the palm of his hand on your head. In this way you shall perform the ritual of purification. Then the priest shall offer the sin offering and perform the ritual of purification. After that he shall kill the animal for the burnt offering and offer it with the grain offering on the altar. In this way the priest shall perform the ritual of purification, and you will be ritually clean. If you are poor and cannot afford any more, you shall bring for your purification only 1 male lamb as your repayment offering, a special gift to the Lord for the priest. And you shall bring only 2 pounds of flour mixed with olive oil for a grain offering, and a half pint of olive oil. You shall also bring 2 doves or 2 pigeons, 1 for the sin offering and 1 for the burnt offering. On the 8th day of your purification you shall bring them to the priest at the entrance of the tent. The priest shall take the lamb and the olive oil and present them as a special gift to the Lord. For the priest, you shall kill the lamb and take some of the blood and put it on the lobe of your right ear and on the front of your right hand and on the big toe of your right foot. The priest shall pour some of the oil into the palm of his own left hand, and with a finger of his right hand sprinkle some of it 7 times there in the Lord's presence. He shall put some of the oil on the same places he put the blood, on the lobe of your right ear and on the thumb of your right hand and on the big toe of your right foot. The rest of the oil that is in his palm you shall put on your head, and in this way perform the ritual of purification. Then you shall offer 1 of the doves or pigeons as the sin offering, and the other as the burnt offering with the grain offering, and in this way the priest shall perform the ritual of purification. This is the law for those who have a dirty skin disease, but who cannot afford the normal offering for his purification. I'm going to read out of the Amplified Bible next. Hold on for a second. emoji. What do you think? Leviticus. This book is so complicated. So I read about the cleansing of the leper. The law of cleansing of a leper. So we're at cleansing of the toxic infected house. Cleansing of the happiness. So I'm reading out the Amplified Bible now. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when any man has a bodily discharge, his discharge is unclean. This shall be the law concerning his uncleanness and his discharge, whether his body allows its discharge to flow or obstructs its flow. It is uncleanness in him. Every bed on which the one who has the discharge lies becomes unclean, and everything on which he sits becomes unclean. Whoever touches his bed shall wash his clothes and bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. And whoever sits on anything on which the man with the discharge has been sitting shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. Also, whoever touches the man with the discharge shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. And if he who has discharge spits on the one who is clean, then he shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. Any saddle on which the man with the discharge rides becomes unclean. Whoever touches anything that has been under him shall be unclean until evening, and whoever carries those things shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. Wherever the one with the discharge touches without raising his hands in water shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. An earthenware container that one with the discharge touches shall be broken, and every wooden container shall be rinsed in water. When a man with the discharge becomes cleansed from his discharge, he shall count off 7 days for his purification. He shall then wash his clothes and bathe his body in running water and will become clean. On the 8th day he shall take 2 turtle-doves or 2 young pigeons and come before the Lord to the doorway of the tent of meeting and give them to the priest. And the priest shall offer them, one as sin offering and the other as a burnt offering. So the priest shall make an atonement for the man before the Lord because of his discharge. Now if any man has a seminal emission, he shall wash all his body. He shall wash all his body. A seminar. And he shall wash all his body in water, and be unclean until evening. Every garment and every letter on which there is seaming shall be washed with water, and shall be unclean until evening. If a man lies with a woman, so that there is a seminal emission, they shall both bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. And when a woman has a discharge, if her bodily discharge is blood, she shall continue in her menstrual impurity for 7 days, and whoever touches her shall be unclean until evening. Everything on which she lies during her menstrual impurity shall be unclean, and everything on which she sits shall be unclean. Anyone who touches her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. Whoever touches anything on which she sits shall wash his clothes and bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. And it is on her bed or on the thing on which she is sitting. When he touches it, he shall be unclean until evening. If a man actually lies with her so that her menstrual impurity is on him, he shall be unclean for 7 days, and every bed on which he lies shall be unclean. So it says, chapter 15, verse 18. Verse 18. If a man lies with a woman so that there is a seminal emission, they shall be both bathed in water, and be unclean until evening. And then he says, God's plan from the beginning includes sexual intercourse between a man and his wife. This is not sinful in God's eyes. The uncleanness and requirements of washing were a ritual cleansing, a reminder of the holiness of God, not a provision of intimate relationships. And about the woman discharges is about there are rules for cleansing, but no sacrifice was required, so menstruation was not regarded as sinful. Leviticus 15, verse 25. Now if a woman has a flow of blood for many days, and not during the time of her menstruation, or if she has a discharge beyond that period as long as the impure discharge continues, she shall be as she is in the days of her normal menstrual impurity. She is unclean. I think it's leading us to Matthew chapter 9, verse 20, about the woman that touched Jesus when she was bleeding for all them years. Hold on for a second. So Matthew 9. Matthew 9, verse 20. Oh yeah, right here. Then a woman who had suffered from a hemorrhage for 12 years came up behind him and touched the tassel, fringe of his outer robe. For she had been saying to herself, if only could I touch his outer robe, I would be healed. Back to Leviticus. Every bed on which she lies during the time of her discharge shall be to her like the bed of her menstrual impurity, and whatever she sits on shall be uncleanly, like the uncleanness of her monthly period. Blood for many days, not during her menstruation. If a woman had a flow of blood at any time other than her normally monthly period, or if this was unusual long, her uncleanness continued the whole time and passed to all she touched. The woman with a hemorrhage who touched Jesus secretly. And Luke chapter 8, verse 43, verse 48 was in this situation. And whoever touches those things shall be unclean, and shall wash his clothes, and bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. And when she is cleansed from her discharge, then she shall count off for herself 7 days, and after that she will be clean. The woman was to bring the smallest allowable sacrifice for the atonement of sins she may have committed during the period of her uncleanness. And then on the 8th day she shall take for herself 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, and bring them to the priest at the doorway of the tent of meeting. And the priest shall offer one as a sin offering, and the other as a burnt offering, and he shall make atonement for her before the Lord for her unclean discharge. Thus she shall separate the Israelites from their uncleanness, so that they do not die in the uncleanness by the defiling by a tabernacle that is among them. This is the law for the one who has a discharge, and for the one who has a senior emission, so that he is unclean by it. And for the woman who is ill because of her monthly period, and for one who has a discharge, whether man or woman, or for a man who lies with a woman who is similarly unclean. So hygiene and health were important byproducts, but the focus of these regulations concerning uncleanness was on keeping God's tabernacle undefiled. Ceremony laws in regarding to the natural impurity seems strange to us, because these ceremonies were made optional by the perfect sacrifice of Christ. But in the Old Testament, one form of blasphemy was defilement of sanctuary worship by certain forms of ceremony impurity. Now we're in chapter 16. Chapter 16, the Law of Atonement.